Before we begin, a gentle note for viewers. This episode includes a sensitive mention of suicide. Please take care while watching and step away if you need to. Support is available.
Welcome to Platform F. I'm with International Miss Olympus Leather 2017.
Yes.
Pixie, I got it right.
You did. Yay.
Pixie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Maybe let's start with your title to give some context around that.
Absolutely. So Olympus Leather was founded by Dave Rhodes in the 90s as a outlet for those who were not traditionally gay male. There is, yes, a Mr. title, or was a Mr. title, but it really stood for anybody could run. You didn't have to be one religion, one race. Any of those discriminatory factors were kind of taken out of it, and that's what Olympus was born out of. Since then, Person of Leather came out from Olympus and branched off, and has really taken over that need. So Olympus has pretty much died off now, and is, I believe, not coming back after COVID.
How was your journey to win the title?
To get there? Sure. So I found Kink, BDSM Kink, in like the 2010s. I kind of found it through reading 50 Shades of Grey. I realized, oh my God, this is the thing. Like, I'm not vanilla. Like, what is all this? And then went into that deep dive of what is all this stuff, and found it. And then ended up moving back to California, where I'm from, and connecting with a friend was actually my sister's friend originally, someone who I'd known, God, years, since I was like 12 years old. And we were having some conversations that realized they were kinky and also leather, and they dragged me into this leather community, not kicking and screaming, totally voluntarily. They kind of dragged me into it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I love this. Like, where was this 10, 15 years ago? And that's kind of how I started in the leather community. And then I ended up running for a title for Sanctuary Leather, which is a dungeon in Los Angeles. Running for that title and losing. Totally okay with that. And then 6 months later, I think, ended up running for West Coast Olympus Leather and won. And then part of that, I had to run for international. I actually didn't want to win.
Oh.
I did not want to win. I only wanted the one title. I didn't want to go on and do another title year. I didn't want any of it. But being competitive and being the person that I am, I could not give it my all. So I gave it my all and won. And so that is how I got to be an international title holder.
We'll get to that in a second. But I'm curious to know, when you started having those conversations and finding people to have those conversations around being kinky or getting into fetishes, how was that? Was it challenging at that time?
It was. For me, it was very challenging because when I found all this information, I was in Ohio, very Midwestern, conservative kind of areas. So it was very hard to kind of find, and I came at it as a heterosexual area, not as queer or gay. So I kind of came into that heterosexual, and I thought I was heterosexual at the time. Now I know differently. But so I think it was a little bit easier coming into kink in that heterosexual space, but it was a lot of online, a lot of finding my own information and own resources. So it was very difficult for me. But then, once I got to LA, very, very different than Midwest Ohio, where there's like nobody and but going to LA, where there's a big prominent leather community, big prominent kink community as well, was much easier to find the resources, people, experiences, finding mentorships, and just people that you can connect with, and sharing and learning the history, learning the things, and absorbing all that in, and creating my own space and community.
And then you started from there, and then you went and won an international title.
Yes.
Which you said you didn't want to win.
I didn't want to win it.
But then you won.
But then I won.
How was that like?
So neither one of my title years were easy for me. 2 months into my West Coast title, I had a motorcycle accident and shattered my left foot and was in the hospital for a week. About halfway through my international title holder year, or a little bit less than halfway through, my 13-year-old daughter committed suicide and what dealt with that. So neither one of my title years were great, but I made through. I got through them. I've dealt with all those things. But yeah, it's so I and having those things happen actually brought my inner community closer to me.
Yeah.
So, and I have stronger friendships with those people.
Yeah.
Probably trauma bonding, but
Yeah.
I've built more relationships because of that. And I've had people after that fact, like that I didn't even really know, and have come up and just given me like, oh my God, I finally, like, people I haven't even met. And this is years later. Like, now I've had some people come up to me and go, oh my God, you're amazing. I love you. I don't know how you survived this. You're an inspiration. And I'm like, huh? What? How does that happen? How does one become somebody else's inspiration? And it's interesting. And I think it's just being visible, being around people and sharing those experiences with them. But you don't know who you're going to inspire.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Thank you for sharing that. I think sometimes we inspire people without even realizing. Going through certain things can make us stronger, can break us, but at the same time can make us stronger, and also it can inspire a lot of other people as well. And thank you for sharing that. After the international, and now you are involved with IML as well.
I am, yes. So a little over a year ago, I moved from the US to Paris, France, where surprisingly Miguel Torres and I had never met in the US everywhere. We ended up meeting in Tromsø, Norway, in the Arctic Circle, at a great event. We ended up meeting there. We connected really great. Actually, I connected with his husband, Rowdy, more. But anyway, we really connected, and he invited me on to the contestant handling team at IML. So last year was my first IML ever that I'd ever gone to, and jumped in with my feet into the deep end and was a contestant handler. And that was an amazing experience for me. And I love giving that kind of service and community support. And I'll be back. So yeah.
You said it was an amazing experience.
It is, yeah.
Being a contestant in international competition, and then now being at the backstage of doing things. What were some of the best experiences?
Being my first IML ever as well, like, I wasn't sure where I was going to fit in with all the established handlers, because it is a big group of handlers. It's about 15. Oh, if I include Team Shine, it's probably about 20 people that are backstage to help 68 contestants shine, right? And making sure you're where you are, where you're supposed to be. You have all your information. It's a lot of work, but also very, very rewarding. But it's interesting being in that space, and finding my footing in that space. And I found it. It took me a minute, but I did find that space. So you won't see it on any of like the video or if you're in the auditorium. But Sunday after top 20, I was the last person they saw before they went on stage. So I was the one that was calming you down before you gave your speech on stage, or pepping you up for that music for your sexy wear. I don't even know what the category is called, but so, and that switch is so fast, because I've got 10 guys that are giving their speech, very serious, very like calming yourself down, and then that last person's on, that next group is right there, and it's a very different energy. And switching myself was very hard, actually, but I did it, and I loved it, and it was great. And I will be doing the same thing again this next year.
You're looking forward to that next year?
Yeah, I am. It's a great weekend. It's a long, tiring weekend, but it's a great weekend.
And now you're experienced as well. This is your second time?
This will be my second time. Yeah.
For a new person who's getting into leather, or going to find their community, or maybe even trying to getting into a competition, or thinking of, one day competing, what sort of advice do you have?
Connect with your locals. ask the questions. You might have to get out of your comfort zone somehow, but ask the questions of your elders. Ask them. They know. They've been there. They were you maybe many years ago, but they were you. And don't assume just because somebody's older that they're an elder either. Because they're not. They may have just found that community very late. I found it late. I was in my 30s when I found it. But find them. Online is a great resource. That life is in some communities is very active, in others not so much. But it is a starting point for a lot of people is FetLife, and then they branch from there. Find some Facebook groups of like-minded type people. There's a lot of crossover between other types of groups as well. So maybe ask in some of those groups if, hey, do you know anything about this? Do you know anybody who might be in this? Because like D&D crosses over, Renaissance type fairs, time period type places cross over. What else kind of crosses over? There's a lot of different other niche groups that do cross over into the kink community or leather community. And if you start asking people, they will know somebody.
Are you doing all this now in Paris to connect with people, or did you already have a community?
I did not. I have no community in Paris, actually. All of my community that I have in Europe that I've now had to rebuild a little bit is not in Paris, believe it or not. I speak very little French, so it's hard to connect that way. But a lot of the leather community in France in general is male. I did go. They just actually the one of the French clubs just had their 50th anniversary, and so I did go to that. I was one of maybe 3 non-males in the room, which has never bothered me. Honestly, I'm comfortable in that gay male space. I will own that room, even though I will. I will own that room. If I want to, though.
Yeah.
If I don't want to, then I'm just in shadow in the corner. But it was weird because you hear so much stuff coming from the US. You hear so much stuff about Europe and it being very strict and rigid and not welcoming to the non-male community and this, that, and the other. I haven't experienced that really, except when I'm in France.
The good thing about living in Europe is it's so easy to connect and travel, right?
It is.
So do you find you going into other places or connecting with people?
I absolutely am. So yeah, like the Switzerland puppy community, oh my God, is amazing. And I love them. The boot black community in Europe is amazing. Ireland is always very welcoming, and they've made it that way, which I'm so glad they did. London is now starting to create their leather weekend more around inclusivity and bringing other groups together. So I'm seeing that shift in Europe, where the US was there 10-ish years ago. So I'm starting to see that shift there, which is great. Yeah. And I'm finding that community. Like I've got people in Germany. I've got people in almost every country that I know now, which is great.
Isn't that amazing to have all these connections all around the world?
It is. And the leather community does that. I don't know a whole lot of other communities where you can go somewhere and you'll meet somebody from another country that lives there actively and will tell you about their community, tell you about their home and what there is to do and different events that happen and invite you there.
Yeah.
Like invite you, hey, you should come over and see this. You can stay with me, whatever that looks like. And it's amazing that in the leather community, you can do that. You can literally post online and be like, hey, I'm going to be in this area. Does anybody have a couch I can sleep on? 9 times out of 10, you will find a couch to sleep on.
Yeah. I found it very interesting to how easy it was to connect with people, because I think by being in a very shocking community, you already have found your similarities, right? So that, you step one step closer to connect with people there. Yeah.
You already had a commonality. There was something already in common that you could build off of to get more.
Yeah. Online has made a lot of things easier.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to think a life without all these connections or social media. I've lived that life. I've lived without all these things, but it's becoming
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to think about a life without social media and like just instantly connecting with other people. It's so hard to think of that. I couldn't go back to the 90s and be like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? I'm so bored. Like what did we do in the 90s when we were
I lived in 90s without mobile phones. Even in early 20s back in Sri Lanka, I don't think I had a personal mobile phone or anything. We were a different place in 20s. 2000s.
The 2000s, because I definitely had a mobile phone in the 2000s. But anyway,
definitely I lived that life, but I don't think it will be the same if you have to do that.
If to go back to that, it would not be the same.
There's a lot of negative association with social media and all, but I think there's a lot of positives that I try. Everything has positives and negatives, so but one of the positive things around social media and internet is that we can connect with our communities around the world, and that's a very easy way to start. It's definitely has made life easier in connection.
With connections with other like-minded people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're still going to have, even at in-person events, you're still going to have some people that you may not get along with or you don't quite connect with because maybe your kinks are different. Maybe the things you're into might be slightly different. You might connect over leather, but that might be the only sticking point, right? So we all have our own little groups even within this broader community.
Pixie, have you faced any challenges over the time when you try to connect with leather folks or anyone around the world?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have. I've had challenges. Language barriers. Language is hard sometimes because you try and connect with somebody and we don't speak the same language or our version of English is different. English might be a second language. It might be a first language, but as I've learned in Ireland, England, and now Australia, words are used differently. What I think means one thing is completely different to somebody else in one of those countries. So it does, our language and asking those clarifying questions really is helpful. But also being a non-male in the leather space can be challenging. You're not always welcome in every space. I've stayed away from events or stayed away from some things because I didn't know that I was going to be welcome because they use the words leather men instead of leather people or whatever. And I'm like, oof, can I go to that? Am I going to be turned away at the door? In fact, I had last January, a friend of mine was in London, invited me to go to an event in, like a leather social really in London. Gave me the name of it. I looked it up and I was looking at, the dress code and, kind of some of the things about it, looking it up. Right. And one of the things was men only. Or it was implied that it was men only. I don't think it quite came out and said that. So I messaged the organizer and said, hey, I'm going to be in London. I'd really like to go to your event, blah, 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 whatever. And they told me no. So, it's also others who are inviting people to things. Be aware of what is allowed at those events. But it is different for some of us who are not male in certain spaces. We can't go.
Yeah.
We want to go. We want to be part of it. We want to socialize with other people that we know, especially because we know half that room, and we're just not welcomed. And it's hard. It's heartening. It's disheartening to not be able to go hang out with my people because I'm not the same.
Do you see that there are spaces or events that are created for different groups in those countries or places you've been?
Ooh.
Or it's not visible much?
It's not as visible. There's smaller communities. They're definitely smaller communities. A lot of times something might start that is for those communities. They might start, but they fizzle out, or they don't have the same types of I'm going to say funding, but that's not really the word I'm looking for. But because that financials aspects are not as affluent. Yeah. And so they can't do as much.
Yeah. The businesses won't make money from
the businesses are not going to make money from this queer community because the money's not in that queer community. The money is in with the gay males, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so I've been fortunate enough that I've had a lot of gay male friends just say, "Hey, you're coming with me," and drag me along. Not even in a bad way of dragging me along, but like, "Hey, let me introduce you to these people. Let me come here with me. It's okay. You're with me. Let's go." And that's been fortunate for me. Not everybody gets that. And I try and do that if I'm like, "Oh, you're new. You're coming with me. Let's go." Because let me show you all of this. Let me introduce you to the right people who can open those doors, because getting those doors opened can be very, very hard.
I always think of where I used to live before I moved to Australia, where there were no spaces or anything that I could access to at that time. There were spaces that we created, but not maybe publicly. But then there were certain spaces, but maybe I wasn't sort of confident about myself or accepting myself to go to those places, but definitely not mainstream things. So I totally understand how it feels when you don't have spaces that you can go into when you want to, and when you want to have that experience.
Yeah.
I think in a way I'm in a privileged position coming to Australia. I live in a city which has a lot of spaces that I can go into. At the same time, I mean, with people who can't access the places that they want to access, or
Right.
yeah. So I think it's a difficult place to be. Personally, I think it's important to have very specific spaces for specific groups, but also spaces for
I'm absolutely
everyone.
for that. Like, yes, you need your own space. You can have your own space. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody should have kind of like their own space,
Yeah.
but at the same time, why are we excluding?
Yeah, I understand.
Like, you can have your own space, but don't make it, I don't feel it should be as public as it is in some areas. So the play spaces, I'm not going to go walk in those play spaces. I don't want to be there. Even if I did walk in there, you're not going to see me. They're dark, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be bothering anybody. But that social aspect of it, that is where we want to be.
Yeah.
We just want to be there to be social, be there for the few hours from, the first couple hours so we can be social with people, and then we'll leave. Like, that is, you can find that balance of, okay, yeah, you can be here for a few hours and then you can, but in the dark, you don't want to go in the dark room. And I've actually never gone in a dark room. I don't want to. I have zero desire to go in there. And most women or non-males are not going to go in there, unless they feel welcomed. I mean, but most of us have just heard so many things. Oh, it's the dark rooms. You don't want to go in there. They're gross. They're just, whatever.
Yeah.
That's just what you hear, is that they're gross and disgusting. I'm not saying that they are, but that's just what you hear. And so it's just one of those things. Like, that's what I heard coming into the community, is that, no, you don't go in the dark rooms.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. I don't want to go in them. Fine. I will stay in the social aspect of the bar, and that's where I'll be. And you can come find me there, and we'll have fun and chat and whatever. And so, like, I think there's some middle ground there that communities can find, is have them all inclusive for the first few hours, and then after midnight or whatever, they turn into male only.
Melbourne has events, say parties or events. Some are focused on certain genders. There are very gender specific events happening around Melbourne for all sort of different genders. But also there's a lot of inclusive events, parties are happening that you see a lot of people from all sort of aspects of life are there. Do you see that in other places that you live?
So in the US, there's not a whole lot of gendered spaces. There are some gender only parties. I know I had been invited to, and it was probably I don't even remember who it was, but somebody invites to a pool party or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to your pool party. It's like, obviously that was just, they invited everybody on their friends list kind of thing, right? In the US, I don't see those gender spaces. I really don't. It's very more inclusive. Everybody's welcome. Are they happening? Absolutely. But it's more of at somebody's house, or it's a men only sex party. It's those kinds of, but the overall like community social spaces are very, very inclusive. In Europe, I do see it more gendered. There's more, some of the bars are male only. There's a lot of those kinds of things in Europe that they are more gendered.
When you think of all these people you met and the community who support you and are around you, what three things come to your mind?
Service. We all, most of the people I have around me have some kind of service, whether that's volunteering at things, service to somebody else, just a community service is really one of the things that I'm big at. I love that community service aspect and giving back and doing that. So most of the people around me do that in some way, shape, or form. Playfulness.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to have fun, and you can't do that if you're not joking with each other, giving each other the utmost amount of shit that you can, and just debauchery. Like that's just, why are we doing this if we're not having fun and being fun about it, right? Welcoming is a good one. We need to be open and welcome to those that are coming in. If we don't have them, we die off.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It has been a very lovely conversation. Thank you for finding time for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In between your travels.
Yes.
And I hope to see you again.
You will.
And maybe we can have another conversation at some point.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.